Kim. Thank you very much, Kim. Kim is our official party starter. When we last met, 2020. Yes. Right month, though. So I got up here, and one of the things I said was I didn't know if I considered canceling that event. And there were a few groans in the audience. We didn't know a lot about what we were in for. But one of the reasons I decided to host it is, one reason was because I think we had 2 cases in Kitsap County at that time, and they were in Bainbridge Island. Is anybody here tonight who lives on Bainbridge Island? See, that's my point. Nobody from Bainbridge was going to be here that night, I figured, and I just, we've been gambling a lot in the last little while, but one of the things I said was, one of the reasons I decided to host it, because I just didn't know how long it was going to be until we could do this again, and now we know. 16 months. That any of you are here tonight, I am so grateful for, so thank you, give yourselves. And I want to say we're here because of what's possibly happening under the canopy out there, people getting vaccinated. We're recording this tonight, both audio and video, and this is actually broadcasting live. So if I screw up, it's out there for the generations. My scientific knowledge is not perfect, but I have my consultant over here, Alicia Morales. Give her a round of applause. And I've been watching the news, obviously, for the last 16 months, not just because of how it affected me, but how society was moving. And there were a lot of other things to pay attention to in that time, as I'm sure you remember, and I'm going to go over virtually none of that because you don't need me to. And not all of it was happy news. The Dodgers did win the World Series, so that was great for me personally. I won't go into the Dodgers. Okay, so in case you wondered, the news isn't so great with them right now. It's awful. So anyway, and it has nothing to do with sports. So over that time, we did the live events online. We kind of kept the place during that time. And so a few months ago, I started thinking that maybe in July, because when I first said I didn't know how long it was going to take, a few months, and then we started thinking August, but I realized, okay, August is like the last chance we could do it, because then it's going to start getting colder, and being inside is, I looked at outdoor venues, all that kind of stuff, and I can't tell you how thrilled I am to be here. I said July because when the state first announced how the vaccine was going to roll out and the age groups and all of that, it looked like by July, everyone will have had the opportunity to get two shots and be fully vaccinated, anybody who wants that. And I was a little cavalier, and I'm not going to ask anybody if you're vaccinated, but I was like, if people aren't vaccinated, how much am I supposed to stop what I'm doing because they won't? Now, here's the caveat. There are people here tonight who, whether they're vaccinated or not, cannot be here because it is not safe. And for them, I want to continue encouraging people on video, in the audience, get your shots. The more people get vaccinated, the less opportunity our little friend the coronavirus has to spread from person to person. I know it's not perfect, but it works really well. The results have been amazing. I think they've surpassed anybody's expectations. So thank you, science. Round of applause for science. What was that? Team Moderna. I'm on the Team Pfizer myself, but any Johnson & Johnson folks here? AstraZeneca? Who am I missing? Team Tequila, yes. All right. Well, thank you. When we first did this almost 7 years ago, we had about 25 people in the audience. I think you two were there, right? Were you there for the first one? Oh, not too long after. The third one. Well, Allison was there for the second one. So I don't know if anybody was here for the first event. I was. And there were about 25 of us. And I counted earlier, and it looks like we have about 35 right now. So yeah, we got to rebuild this audience, but we're starting way ahead of where we were before. So tell your friends, get them out here. Hopefully somebody will watch what's happening live and decide, you know, that looks like it'd be kind of cool. I don't know. All right. So I gotta see if I remember how to do this. Oh yes. Anybody here for the first time? Nobody here for the first time? How are we doing out there? Has anybody gotten a shot? Hey, shh. Folks, I don't know your name, but there's somebody here from Kitsap Public Health. Round of applause, please. If you're watching at home and you can get here within 10 minutes, four doses of Pfizer need a home. Come get it. Again, thanks to Kitsap Public Health. I want her to go out and tell her how nice we were. Nice to see you. Okay. So, nobody seems to have, nobody's here for the first time, really? That is crazy. That's the first time that's ever happened. Okay, so your challenge for next month is bring somebody who's never been here before. All right. You haven't. Oh, I didn't see you raise your hand. Oh, okay. Let me do it again. Anybody here for the first time? Yay! Yeah, okay. Another person in the Kim Weaver downline. Yes. So this is how it works. We set out a theme. Storytellers get up, 5 minutes, no props, no notes, no singing. At least singing shouldn't be the dominant part of the presentation. No poetry, that shouldn't be the part of the presentation either. When I say no prose, but tonight, whatever pin-up demand you have to tell a story, whatever you want to do to tell a story, I don't care. We're not judging tonight. We're not timing tonight. We don't have that many storytellers that's going to be a problem, but no 20 minutes, that's probably good. As we say, your story is too long if it feels too long. It feels too long to the rest of us. If somebody is up here a long time, audience, you have my permission to tell them we love you, we love your story, we know there's got to be an ending somewhere, and we hope you find it soon, by applauding at inappropriate moments or whatever. Okay. All right. What's next? Oh. Please give a round of applause to the staff from the Cloverleaf. I didn't know what to expect tonight. I didn't know how many people to expect. I'm thrilled to see as many people as I do, because you just never know. And you never know if people aren't going to be back. Two people that I wish were here and I thought might be here. I want to call special attention to them because Mike and Carol Etkin are the most recent episode of a podcast. Yes, we have a podcast. I'm an American. I have a podcast. That's how it works. And Mike Etkin's story is the most recent one. And Mike and Carol have been long-time patrons. Yes. Yeah. That suggests that they've paid for the, I don't know. They've been long time, I love Mike and Carol Etkin, all right? They come here a lot. And Mike tells stories. He's from the South, and as it turns out, they're moving to the South. If you people would stop having grandkids, it would really help us out. I can't blame them for going, but we're going to miss them. I hope they can make it back one more time, but I wanted to call them out. Also, did I already have you yell for the Cloverleaf staff? Okay. Oh, yeah. I mean, I didn't know how many people we were going to have, and I was really worried that we would have too many people because restaurants are having a tough time getting people working for them, so they deserve a lot of thanks. Also, Kitsap Regional Library. Round of applause. We have, is it 3 of you or 2 of you? We have 2 here unofficially. They are not here in their official capacities. Therefore, they are at my mercy. Lisa's drinking early. They are at my mercy, but I have agreed to read some stuff for them. We'll see how well I do at this. Everybody who tells a story tonight walks home with a book. Well, you may not be walking. You're probably driving home. But you get to leave this building with a book. So that's one of your incentives. If you were sitting on the fence about whether to tell a story tonight, there may be a book in your future, and that might just turn the tables. Okay. I have left on the stage. Usually they occupy that corner back there. I decided to occupy this corner up here. In the bag, you will, let's see. There are summer learning booklets. See, this is why I said they're at my mercy. Summer learning booklets where you can track your hours for the reading challenge and turn them in at our special prize event on August 13th. At the event, which I assume will be an in-person event, right? We're hoping that we'll be meeting at the Kitsap Regional Library by August 13th. We're hoping, fingers crossed, we're hoping they'll be here next month so I don't have to read this stuff. You don't have to hear me read this stuff. At the event, you can choose between books, t-shirts, and a picnic blanket. For more information, please visit krl.org. Downtown Bremerton is still having their anti-racism learning circle on July 8th. This month's conversation will be colorism. Join us in a dialogue and active listening as we explore anti-racist ideas and practices in the current context. Check our webpage for more anti-racism resources and schedule. Learn more information at our webpage and in the Inspire Light trifold that should be accompanying the material we handed today for Story Night. Yes, it is down here. I see the booklet and the trifold. There are also bookmarks down here. This is a personal message. We miss you all, and we hope to be in person at the Cloverleaf very soon once the library reviews the new state reopening guidelines. We appreciate your patience and support as we continue through these transitions. Remember that all of our branches are open for in-person visits, most of them from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. A complete schedule is available at our webpage and in the Inspire Light. Have fun tonight, and we look forward to hearing your stories on the Story Night podcast and on the live feed that is broadcasting over Facebook. By the way, that's on my personal page, Stephen Gardner. If you find me, this is broadcasting live right now. So to our live audience, if you're here for the first time, I can't hear you, but thank you for joining us. I hope you got wind of what's happening. Warning, this is an all-ages room. Which means that we may hear all ages language from time to time, all language subject matter. I don't have a hook big enough to pull anybody off the stage, and I wouldn't be inclined to do it anyway. This is your stage once it happens. Now, I also, in between the stories, I'm going to read these notes that I gave you. After 16 months, I couldn't come up with a better question than what I had tonight. So thank you for anybody who has shared tonight. And what I have you do, in case you haven't seen this before, so I'm speaking directly to you. And she's not listening again. That looks really good. I'm just kidding. Sorry, I was just talking right at you. Okay, can we turn the mic up? If it's too low for me, it's too low for a lot of folks. So use your teacher voice. I haven't been using that in the last 16 months. Actually, that's a lie. All right. So are we any better? A little louder? Up, up, up. Yeah, I sound like I'm demanding. Oh, that sounds a lot better, right? What's that? This is an appropriate time to sing a song. To sing a song? Oh, it's all the way up? All right. So everybody, it's time to shout, jump, shout, knock yourself out. What's that? Yeah, it's on. Well, there's a yellow light on. Oh, you know, I got to eat that microphone. What's that? Oh, I thought you were giving me like, go Barry White on it or something. All right, so I handed out slips for you to fill out anonymously. The question, there's usually a pretty direct question, but tonight after 16 months, I'm thinking, you know what? There might be a lot of pin-up stuff people want to write and be anonymous about. Though I'll try to figure out who this is, each and every one of you. It's been a while. It's a free country. Your mileage may vary. Write whatever you want to share. Grateful to get out and go to an eating place where you eat at. As much as I like it, beats watching Avengers Endgame again. Anybody else here still haven't seen Avengers Endgame? Yeah. Yeah, well, I'm hosting this event, so I don't care. All right. I'm just thinking of this old Rolling Stones lyric, I'm free to do what I want any old time. Yeah. All right. I'm going to read one more. If you have other bursts of inspiration, there are plenty of these things around the room, and pens, write it down. It seems a lot of laws were made for COVID protection, but now they are keeping many oppressive laws. All right, there you go. And let's see. Okay, I apologize if I mess this up. Oh, I get it. I shouldn't have told you that I get it. My husband is mad that I have no sense of direction, so I packed up my stuff and write. Anybody go to Dutch Bros this morning? Dutch Bros? Oh, man. I am in the wrong demo group. Because if you went to Dutch Bros this morning, you got a sticker. Well, I have a gift for everybody that attended tonight. There's a little Story Night sticker. It's free. Well, free for you. But I want to see this on your cars. I really want you to ruin your paint jobs or your windows. So I got a bunch of these. So each of you take one before you leave. Also, it doesn't take a lot of money to run Story Night, but it does take some. So if you're in the mood, go ahead and leave some money in the tip jar up here. If everybody left $1, I'm assuming we're going to be able to keep doing this month after month after month. But if everybody left $1, we'd be in great shape. It really, like I say, it doesn't take a lot, but I love you if you help out there. Okay. I guess I kind of remembered how to do this. So we have a few storytellers signed up. Are you ready for stories? How many of you are past ready for stories? Past ready, or how many of you have been saying? Oh, I was just talking about the last 10 minutes, not the last 16 months, but okay. Oh, is this you? Yeah. Our first story, and I'll just announce one, I'll announce it each time. Our first storyteller tonight, all the way from Sequim. Janae Sparks. Our step is over here. Is it Sparks? Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So right before the pandemic, my aunt called me, 6 months before the pandemic. My aunt called me, and she was going to be taking a trip to Egypt, and she couldn't get anybody to go with her. As I'm listening to her complain, my hands raising, and I said, I'll go. She says, really? And I said, absolutely. So, September before the pandemic, we took a trip to Egypt, and it included a 7-day trip down the Nile River. It's important to say that I was the youngest person by about 25 years on this trip, but I'm a story maven, and they got stories. And I was sitting on the upper deck of this cruise boat going down the Nile River in the stifling northern African heat, thinking, oh my God, I'm in Africa. I thought Egypt was in the Middle East. No, we're in Africa. And I'm looking out at the Nile River thinking, I wonder what kind of fish are in there. Obviously, I'm from the Pacific Northwest, and fishing is just a part of the life that I grew up within. And so I just kept thinking, what is in the Nile River? So that night at dinner, Shabbat came to our table. And he says, can I help you with anything else? And I said, I'd like to go fishing. And he looked at me and he says, we will serve you fish. And I was like, no, I want to go fishing. And he says, we will serve you fish? There's a definite question mark at the end. And the table kind of goes quiet. And he was like, yes, no problem. Because everything is yes, no problem. He comes back a few moments later, and he was like, meet me at the back of the boat, 9 o'clock. And I was like, oh my God, yay. And then he leans forward and whispers, tell no one. And I kind of take a pause. I'm in a country that has some extreme laws for women, and I've been bristling for the last week at the rules that we had to abide by as women that the men didn't have to. And so I looked at my aunt later when we were in our room, and I was like, do you think I need to be concerned about going to the back of a boat with a man? And she thought about it for a second, and she was like, nah, just go. So 9 o'clock comes along, and I'm skipping down the corridor, and I push open the heavy door at the back of the boat, and the absolute smell of diesel and heat just encompassed me. And I blink for a second to get my bearings, and I have 2 Egyptian boys standing there with fishing poles and bait smiling at me. And I just jump up and down and clap my hands. I was like, we're going fishing. So we're fishing off of the boat, the back of the boat in the Nile River. And they're, of course, wanting to bait my hook, and I'm like, no, I'm from the Northwest. I can bait my own hook. So they're like, okay. And again, women issues, right? So I'm trying to kind of take a back seat and reel it in. It's super hard. And so they want to cast it out for me, and I was like, I can cast my own pole. So I cast out, fish on, right off the bat, bam. And I reel up this fish, and I'm so excited, and I pull it out of the river. I'm like, oh, carp. That's what's in the Nile River. And they go to unhook the fish, and I was like, I got this. And I unhook the fish and just toss it back. And they're all like, no! And I'm like, what? But again, I'm just riding this high of doing what I wanted to do in Egypt. And so I cast out again, and I'm listening to these boys tell stories about the elusive catfish in the Nile River in broken English. And I'm just reveling in this position that I am in and just absorbing it all. And back home, there's 3 things that you need to worry about when you're fishing. Who catches the first fish? I just got that one. Who catches the most fish? And who catches the biggest fish? Those are the 3 things that matter in our boat back home. Bam, fish on. Reel up that fish, catch it, and they immediately take that fish. As soon as I reel it up, unhook it, and put it in a bag by the railing. Oh, okay. And again, I'm super oblivious to what's going on around me. Cast back out. Reel back in, because bam, fish on. And this one's heavy. This one's hard. And so I'm reeling. I'm thinking, I got this. I already got 2 out of the 3. And I reel this fish up, and it's a big carp, according to them. they're using my forearm to measure this fish, and they're speaking in Arabic and just talking back and forth, and someone else comes back to the boat, and they're like, oh my God, there's a guest back here. And they unhook the fish, and they put it in the bag. Time wears on. I think, okay, I'm 3 for 3. I got the first fish, the most fish, and the biggest fish. And I thank them profusely for taking me fishing off the back of the boat. And as I'm walking to my room, I start to realize something. We do a lot of catch and release here. Fishing is game. Fishing is sport. They wanted that fish for food. And all of a sudden, the realization kind of dawns over me. And I start to think about the privileged lifestyle that we live in the United States. And my position in this world becomes a little bit clearer. And I never would have had that if I didn't go to Egypt. So on this trip, not only did I learn about pyramids and hieroglyphics, I also learned that in the Nile River, there's carp and catfish. Thank you.
In there, yeah. Round of applause for Janae. Officially our first storyteller when we came back. Did I say officially? Oh. I meant to do that. Yeah. So apparently the sound is good enough that we have people commenting. We have like 4 or 5 people watching, so this is worth it. Jose from Kitsap Regional Libraries. So glad Story Night is back. Amazing. Priya Cherry from Kitsap Regional Library. Hi, Story Night. Good to see you all. Oh yeah, I didn't explain. They can't officially be here, but we have 2 that are here unofficially on an unofficial business. Priya just had a birthday. We've got time. You want to sing happy birthday real quick? All right, 1, 2, 3. Look at the camera. Birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Priya. Happy birthday to you. Anybody else have a birthday? Oh, you? Okay, let's sing again. I'm just kidding. All right. Lorinda Esposito from Grace Harbor, Ocean Shores. Thank you. I had hopes of being there in person. Thanks for going live. I am loving the sound of a happy crowd. I'm right with you, Lorinda. Priya again said, I miss hearing Kim's woo in person. I chimed in. Is the sound okay? Nobody answered, but I guess they're hearing it okay. So, Doug Avery. I love this. I wish I were there. Stay awesome, everyone. I believe he's back at his where he grew up in Connecticut. I know he went to the Red Sox game the other night. So, I think he's coming back. So he'll be here. So, Lorinda says they're hearing it fine. Jose says happy birthday to Priya. Oh, Priya did respond. She said, quit that. No, she said, y'all so sweet, thank you. That's what she really said. All right, so applause for our online audience. That's pretty cool. Our next storyteller, by the way, is Allison Loris. Something else I want to mention is the sign, the flag back here. I bought that around the time that we did our first online story night. I thought it'd be nice to have a backdrop like that. I mean, when we're here in person, we don't need that kind of stuff. But for 16 months or 15 months or however many of those we did, that was most often the backdrop. Tonight, when we're done, before you leave tonight, I'm going to take that down. I'm going to lay it down here, and I've got some fabric pens. I'd love for you all to sign it. So, and we'll hang it every month with new signatures and whatnot, new people that come. All right. So it's been a while. It's a free country. Your mileage may vary. Write whatever you want to share. It's been a long year. Amidst our boredom, my brother and I decided to play a little game with our parents. We started leaving sex toys in their Amazon shopping cart. That is a little game. All right. Yeah. Well, it depends on what you order, but yeah. And waited for them to notice. They asked my brother once, and then it never came up again. So, I don't want to miss a word on this. So we continued to put them in there. A ball gag here, a butt plug there. Then we had the best idea of all. This year they celebrated their 40th anniversary. So we mailed them a package. It took them a while, but they finally figured it out, and they haven't said a word about it since. Well, I want to know what was in that package, but maybe I don't want to know. I don't know. Thank you for sharing that. That's a cool gag. If any of you receive weird things in the mail, I promise it didn't come from me. All right. A school teacher, Mr. Sheedy, told me I should seriously consider the armed forces. I'm sorry, I can't say what that says, but there's an exclamation point at the end. Married, maybe, I don't know. The girl in the short skirt, he thought I was dumb because of what I wore. I just looked at him and said, I don't look good in green. The class laughed. Perfect example of telling a man what they wanted / expected to hear. Insert eye roll. Nicely done. Write whatever you want to share, no matter how hot and sweaty you are. Never, and I mean never, apply extra strength Gold Bond to your testicles. Ever. Hadn't been a consideration, I'll be honest with you. Hadn't been something I'd consider. Hey, everybody, please welcome Allison Loris.
Excuse the cough. It's not contagious. It's just serious long-term lung damage. So, my story is an illustration of why a gap year between high school and college is a good idea for some students. Okay. I was the oldest child of a single mother. From the age of 10, I was babysitting my siblings, doing all the grocery shopping because my mother said I was better at math and we had a really tight budget. Just a lot of responsibilities. They only increased as my mother began to combine work, college, theater, and a host of new friends, most of whom were younger than her and loved to party. So that by the time I was a teenager, I was home babysitting my youngest sister while my mother was being a teenager. So I did really well in school. I had no social life to distract me. I was pretty much a disembodied mind. So I won a full scholarship to Barnard College. And all it meant to me at that point was room and board in New York City without my mother. I exploited this freedom to the full. I drank espresso in Middle Eastern cafes in Greenwich Village. I drank cheap beer in basement dives with peanut shells on the floor. I drank scotch in a bar that was reputed to have graffiti by William Burroughs in the men's room, except that I didn't see it. I went to a happening where I illustrated nonverbal communication by dancing. No one, least of all me, was sure what I was communicating, but it was fun. I went to anti-war demonstrations with Native New Yorkers and California hippies. This was 1966, folks. I obediently took off my earrings in response to the flyers being handed out, advising us to do that in case we were violently arrested and the earrings were ripped from our ears. I went to all kinds of cultural events, from mainstream, internationally known poets reading to the kind of new music that expressed a profound distaste for traditional tonalities, let alone melody. I did it all. I contracted STDs I had never heard of. I woke up in a lot of strange places. Not so very often the Barnard dorm. And I learned a lot. Not exactly what I was meant to be learning, but quite a lot. One morning, I woke up in an unfamiliar apartment near campus after a forgettable night with a forgettable boy who was still asleep. And I wandered into the kitchen, and his roommate offered me a cup of coffee. And I sat chatting with him. I know he was from Ghana. I don't remember his name, so I just assigned him a traditional Ghana name, Adjo. And Adjo was a chemistry student, and I told him I was just about to fail chemistry, and he was appalled. I could see that he was really appalled at the waste of this huge educational opportunity I had been offered, when his educational opportunity had cost him so much. In overcoming the disadvantages of his schooling, of getting to the point where he would be accepted by Columbia University, all the money, the distance from his home, having to live in a completely foreign culture and go to school in a foreign language. And he offered to tutor me. He said, if you show up twice for an hour or so and pay attention, I can guarantee you'll get a C on the final exam and pass. And I did. I did show up, and I did pay attention, and I did get that C. Of course, it then took me another 36 years to get a BA. I graduated from Evergreen 6 years after my younger child. But I learned many, many things that year. But the thing I learned from Adjo, the foreign student, I will never forget. I learned that freedom doesn't mean much. It's what you do with it that matters.
Thank you, Allison Loris. Write whatever you want to share. My exile began February 10th, 2020. I'm really susceptible with allergies, asthma, arthritis, blood pressure, essential tremors, and other problems. What did I miss most? People. No TV, no internet, no telephone, sitting outside the library without being able to enter, occasional trips to the market. So glad to see everyone. Hear, hear. By the way, our next storyteller is Kim Weaver. That's the appropriate response for Kim Weaver, since she has done that so much here. She has trained us well. Okay. Someone on Facebook insisted that everybody should feel free to set off all the fireworks they want to, in spite of the extreme fire danger, because, quote, it's tradition. I replied, slavery is tradition. Forbidding a woman to own property is tradition. Sometimes we have to grow up and let go of some traditions. Keep clapping for Kim Weaver.
Hi, friends. I'm going to hold this because I'm known to break microphones, and I think this might be a little safer. So, I grew up in a very restrictive environment, especially for women and girls, and I was taught to believe that the world is a very chaotic and dangerous place. People are fundamentally dangerous and not to be trusted, and that I was in need of constant vigilance and protection. My life since then has been an almost unbelievable series of broadening horizons and newfound freedoms, and what some of you might have heard referred to as character building experiences. I got so much character, I'm like a cartoon sitcom all rolled into one. But it took 16 months of quarantine and a violent crime against me by a complete stranger last August to help me confront and hopefully, eventually, overcome a little bit the last remaining barrier to my freedom, which is the social anxiety and hypervigilance that has been a part of me since before I can remember. And don't get me wrong, like hypervigilance, it can really come in handy, in certain situations and at some times. Like I grew up in a hunting culture. Everybody hunted. And a lot of the little 12-year-old kids found it very difficult to sit in a freezing tree stand in the Pennsylvania winter all day long while nothing happened and still be paying attention at that moment when a deer came running by. But I didn't find that challenging at all. There was a lot to notice in nature. There's always little squirrels and birds going by. But also, there was hell to pay if you were not paying attention at that moment when the deer ran by. Also, as a teacher in Philadelphia, my observational skills were tested every moment of every day. With 40 teenagers in a room, there is a lot going on. There is a lot to notice, and my hypervigilance really served me well. My students all knew that if, for example, they were watching anime porn on their phone that they had hidden inside their calculator case during an exam, I would notice. True story. You know who you are if you're watching. And once, as an adult, I was sitting on my friend's porch enjoying a nice glass of wine with her when this really erratic driver screamed around the corner and up the block and was swerving all over and we thought it was going to take out her car, which was parked in front of her house. And it was just a near miss, and he went screaming up the street, and I looked over, and my friend was like, oh my gosh, I was praying to Jesus. And I just looked at her very confused, and I was like, I was memorizing the license plate. Isn't that what you do? That was 15 years ago, and we still tease each other about that moment. But this level of awareness and vigilance and hyper-anxiety, it's really limiting in a lot of other ways. I studied abroad in England when I was in college, but I only went out once to a club, and even then I left early. All my friends were going, and I just couldn't take it. It was lights and noise and humans everywhere, and I just didn't trust myself to be able to keep myself safe and to keep my friends safe. I just had to get out of there. And there have been a lot of things that I have turned down and invitations I haven't accepted because I was sure that the environment would be too much for me. I've even gone to events and gotten to the door and turned around and left because it's just like, I don't know, I guess the kids these days are calling it noping, like you just nope out. And I've been noping like since the 80s out of things. And I know that that might come as a surprise to some of you who just know me from here, but like even here at Story Night, which is my happiest place on earth, suck it, Disney World, I have to struggle to stay in the moment and know that I'm safe. I always sit over there so that I can see all y'all. If anybody's gonna do anything sketchy, I got my eye on you over there. Can see both doors. And nobody should have to live like that. You know, that should not be controlling my life and keeping me from moving freely around the world. So quarantine made sense to me. A lot of people were like, what the hell is this even? And I'm like, I get it. I get being scared to leave your house. I get it. I get looking at strangers walking down the street and thinking, is that person dangerous? Like, apparently some of y'all have never thought of that before, but like, welcome to my world. So in August of last year, a beautiful August day, and again, I'm living my life in quarantine. It was kind of okay. I was walking my dog down the street in my neighborhood, and a random stranger tried to kill me. And it was really awful. And I'm not dead. Some of you look really worried. It's fine. It's fine. But something that could have ended up with me dead along the side of the road instead ended up with a very quick arrest and a conviction of a felony for the person who did this. And, the police were like, who are you? You are amazing. Like, you not only saved your own life, like, you wrote an 11-page handwritten report with an annotated map with, like, the north arrow on it and like, little labeled numbers of all the different things that happened and, like, timestamps from your phone. And, like, who are you? And I was like, I have been training my whole life for this. And, the cops are like, you did an amazing job. Like, this is why he was convicted, because the level of detail that you were able to provide. And my inner hypervigilance monster was like, yes, I'm right. The world is dangerous. People are scary. And you are right to be afraid of everything and everyone, and you should just never leave your house again and pretend that it's COVID time all the time. But through the magic of trauma counseling, I've come to maybe see this event in a different way. I'm working on it. I'm still like freaking out a little bit over there, but I'm working on it. And like maybe that was the day that I have been training for all my life. Maybe every time I flexed those concentration muscles and those noticing muscles and those hypervigilance muscles, maybe that was what allowed me to walk out of that situation completely unscathed. Maybe now I can lay it all down. Maybe that's what it was for. And, maybe someday I can even like sit in the middle of the room, and maybe now I can finally be free. Thank you.
Don't go too far, Nessa. Give it up for Kim Weaver. First time I've ever seen somebody say, through the magic of trauma counseling. That is how I'm going to refer to it from now on. And I think that can be a powerful message when it doesn't have to be somebody trying to kill you, literally. But there are moments when we can look at things that are hard and say, I've been training for this my whole life. So thank you for that bit of wisdom. I don't know if you meant to share a bit of wisdom with us, but I feel it was wise. So one more time, applause for Kim. Nessa Goldman is our next storyteller. Yes. She needs me to read slowly. Okay. Write whatever you want to share. It is nice to be here. Time? What is time? 16 months. Okay. I lived in Chile for 16 months. I mean, my life changed so much in that 16-month period that when I figured out that it had been 16 months since we did this, I'm older now. Stuff doesn't affect me as much, but okay. As much as COVID sucked and still sucks, there was a lot of good last year. I got married. Applause. Oh, there's more. I paid off all my student loans. I got a new job where I'm working less and making more. How cool is it? We got a vaccine developed in like 4 to 10 months. Glad to be, that's kind of true. If 2004, but I see your point. Okay. Go science, yeah. Alicia, how long has it really taken?
I mean, the mRNA technology has been in the works for a long time. This has just been one of the main ways that they've been able to apply it.
Right, and so my understanding, I've heard two stories on it. One was This American Life, another one was a New York Times thing where the New York Times was that there was this, an immigrant, give it up for immigrants, pushed and put, and I can't remember where she was from, but she pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed. This was back east somewhere, and finally she got an experiment going, or they did enough testing. Is experimenting the right word? I don't know. Yeah, they did testing in that, and they figured out this could work way back like in 2005. And then in 2014, was it the MERS? I'm sorry, if you don't know something, feel free to tell me, but well, I think it was the MERS virus, or maybe it was the SARS virus in 2014, one of those. They were getting ready to test this technology on that, but then the virus kind of went away. Like this one was supposed to. I didn't say that, but somebody else did. By the way, something I forgot to say. I'll think of it later. Never mind. Okay. I'm not going to remember. Okay. So I got another job where I'm working less and making more. Developing 4 to 10 minutes. Glad to be back at Story Night. Thanks, Steve Cloverleaf, and all of you for being here. Thanks to essential workers. And remember that all workers are essential. Cheers to life moving forward and to those who didn't make it through to today. Absolutely. Thank you. You ready, Nessa?
Yeah.
Please give it up for Nessa Goldman. Oh, yeah, no recording. We're doing it twice.
I'm going to bring this down. All right, can everybody hear me? Cool. So, growing up, I was a latchkey kid. And on this particular day, I'm 15 years old, and I go home and I pick up the mail, and I'm leafing through it, and I remember exactly what the envelope looked like. It was baby blue. It had type font on it, like from a typewriter. It was addressed to my parents, and it had no return address on it. I didn't think too much of it, went about my evening, and later my mother comes to me in the living room, and I can see she's been crying. I'm like, this is not good. And she just hands me the letter. It has 4 lines. It says, "Don't let your daughter go to any more rave parties. Her friends are a bad influence. She's been lying to you. she's been doing the drug ecstasy. Now, this is the 90s, and for those of you who are not familiar with rave culture of the 90s, and I'm in Ontario, Canada, where it was a really big scene, it was like rented out warehouses where teenagers, because these were all ages events, would go and dance all night long to like happy hardcore and jungle and drum and bass and genres that I'm not even sure still exist today. And they would wear pants that were double wide, and I know I'm wearing wide pants tonight, but like imagine one pant leg. And kids who are dressed up as like human cotton candy with plastic beaded necklaces and pacifiers on them. And the reason they wore the pacifiers is because they were doing ecstasy. And for those of you who are not familiar, you go, nah, 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 you just like shoot your face off all night, I guess. And that is not why I wanted to go to a rave. So let me bring you back a little bit. A month before, I asked my parents if I could go. I'm a really honest kid. I feel the need to tell my parents everything. And I had a strict curfew, too. It was a 10 o'clock curfew when I was in high school. So I asked for permission to go. And my parents were no dummies. They knew kind of what was going on. And so the only way they were going to allow me to go is if I agreed not to do any drugs. Now, to me, marijuana, I never even call it that, weed and mushrooms were not drugs. And I know how that might sound, but like I still don't think they're drugs. Anyway, but I could agree to that. I could agree that I wouldn't do drugs, and I'd call them when I got there, and I would call them when I got home, or like let them know I was coming home, and they allowed me to go. And so now I find myself at the rave, and whatever, smoking weed, and my one friend had some mushrooms, and if you've ever done mushrooms, like doing mushrooms at a party is like not always the best idea. But he also had acid. And it was only $5, and like, who can resist a good deal? So I decided to take the acid. So honestly, it's like a pretty unremarkable night. Like, you shouldn't do psychedelics when you're 15, let's be honest. And I can't even really say I appreciated the evening. But afterwards, like I said, I'm an honest kid. I'm also very transparent. I like to tell stories, apparently. And I guess I told a lot of people. So when this letter came, it just like ruptured my parents' trust in me. And it also eroded my trust in everybody else, because I was like, who wrote this letter? Because if it wasn't already clear, it was an anonymous letter. It had no return address, had no author. It was just an anonymous letter. And so I accused everybody then afterwards. It was like, the girls I was mean to in middle school, like, could it have been them? Would they write a letter to my parents? Like, was it my parents? Were they trying to, like, pigeonhole me and, like, get me to confess to something? And it was like, I rattled my brain. I went to therapy. I had trust issues for a long time, and it started to become this like narrative in my life, like the anonymous letter story. Like, where did it come from? And I'm like, maybe it didn't even happen. Like, I was so beguiled by this anonymous letter. And at one point, it's like about almost 4 years later, I'm at a friend's house, and I'm telling her the story, and it just dawns on me, it clicks, that I never asked my cousin. And I don't know why I thought of my cousin in that moment, but it occurred to me then. And so what you need to know about my cousin is that she and I are a month apart. So growing up, super close. Like, did everything together, wrote letters to boys and bought magazine and like all the things. And then at 10, she became Jews for Jesus. And so I was the bad influence in her eyes. And it just clicked on me that one night. And I was like, oh my God, I never asked her. So I go home that evening, and I wasn't thinking about confronting her then, but it just so happened when I popped on MSN Messenger that she was online. And so I took this as my opportunity to ask her. And I said, hey, Margot, like, do you remember that letter that I got, like, back in 10th grade? And she was like, yeah. I'm like, no, like, do you really remember the letter? Like, I went to therapy, like, trust issues. Do you remember this at all? She's like, yeah, no, I know exactly what you're talking about. And I was like, did you or your mom, because I had a feeling your mom had something to do with it, did you guys write that letter? And she's like, yeah, we did write the letter. And this is, again, typing. And I just fucking lose my mind. I go, like, atomic on her. I am just like, how could you? I just ask me all the questions. Why? What on earth? And she's like, I was worried, and I talked to my mom, and I was praying for you. And she's like, I put my prayers in my God box for you. And I was like, what in the goddamn world is a fucking God box? And why are you praying for me? And why is your mom writing an anonymous letter to her sister? Like, why didn't she just say something? She's like, we were so worried, you'd understand. I'm like, I can't believe this. Like, she was defending herself. She was so unapologetic. It's like, how can you not apologize? And she just stood by her word. And I was like, this is unforgivable. I'm like, again, teenager. So I was like, I'm never talking to you again. And I kind of, I just felt convinced, like, I thought I was owed an apology at the very least. But I couldn't really be mad at my cousin because really when she found God, she lost herself. She was this, like, shell of a person. And it took a little while, but eventually I was able to forgive her. But really the truth of the matter was that I wasn't some bad kid who was off doing drugs. I was just a kid who wanted to dance all night long. And, you know, have I done acid again? Yeah, maybe. But, like, I don't I don't think that's the message here. But forgiveness is the key. That's it.
Nessa, by the way, also came down from Sequim tonight. A round of applause. I love how she mentions Ontario's got quite the drug scene. And the Grateful Dead fan here is like, yeah, he knows. Okay, speaking of which, Jeff Allen, you're our next storyteller. Okay, it's been a while. Write whatever you want to share. I am driving to Denver this summer with my 2 children, ages 3 and 6. A month ago, this seemed like a great idea. I have now decided that I have lost my mind. So I will embark on this journey with the idea of freedom on my mind, freedom from my sanity. Speaking of children, Lindsay became a mom this last year. Round of applause. I learned I'm pretty tough. Last weekend, I was hiking alone. I fell. It wasn't a small fall. I split my knee open. But my first aid skills were on point. I taped myself up, slapped on a tensor, and hiked down the remaining 2,000 feet in 5.5 miles, and then drove myself to get stitches. Whoever you are, man, great job. Please welcome Jeff Allen.
First of all, MSN Messenger, that's so 90s. So I had absolutely nothing planned. I walked in the door and said, Steve told me, hey, you want to speak? And I said, I have no idea. What's the theme? Freedom. So I made a list. So I'm using an aid here, but you know what? No points, so we're all good. So this list is a little bit of Brussels sprouts. It's a little bit of NPR. It's a little bit of Josh Farley. It's a little bit of oxytocin. And it's a little Moderna. So what I want to talk about is the freedoms that I felt over the last 16 months, that I discovered over the last 16 months. The first one began on March 24th of 2020. If you recall, March 23rd was the date of the official statewide lockdown. March 24th was the scheduled day of my next haircut. My last haircut was on January 15th of 2020. And so this has been kind of a cool cruise to just let this freak flag fly. I've learned about things about tying my hair. I've learned about dry shampoo. This is amazing products, right? Dry shampoo, it's an amazing thing. I've learned why when it's really hot out, you really want to tie your hair up. This has been all new. I don't know when this is going to go away, but it's been fun to have the freedom to let this freak flag fly. Another freedom that I've enjoyed over the last year and a half is started prior to the whole COVID thing. The fall of 2019. 2019, you know how long ago that was? 2019. The fall of 2019, I laid 600 square feet of cardboard into my front yard in an effort to kill all living organisms in said front yard because I was tired of mowing the lawn and trying to keep it green and battling the dandelions, because I knew if I were to keep it green and keep the dandelions down, I would be using chemicals that would flow down into the water. So I made a garden. And so beginning when the lockdown happened, I began working from home. And outside my window was this pile of cardboard with mulch on top of it. And then in the afternoons after working from home, I'd walk into my garage and start building 450 square feet of raised bed boxes that ultimately went into my front yard and filled up with dirt and grew Brussels sprouts and kale. Oh, I got a Vitamix. I'm drinking green smoothies all the time now, right? And so the freedom of growing your own food, and even more the freedom of sharing that with other people, and people walking by I live on Perry Avenue just down here, and people walking by my garden, by my yard, and saying, "That's great, I wish I could do that." And I said, "Well, grow your own food." And then her husband, or she elbowing her husband and saying, "We should do that." And so my goal through that is that everyone starts growing food. I don't have a cow. I don't know why I was growing grass. Now I grow food that I eat. So I have the freedom of my own food. Then some freedoms came when I got Moderna. Let's hear it for Moderna, or Pfizer, the Johnsons. It's actually just Johnson because it's not 2 shots, so we just have to call it Johnson. It's just a Johnson. It's just a Johnson. So in my position in my work, I'm a public educator, and I was an administrator. I was waiting for my staff. Most of us were working remotely. We have different programs. Some of our staff were actually serving youth, high-risk youth, or youth with a lot of needs, and did an amazing job over the course of this last year. A friend of mine called me and said, "Hey, I work at a clinic. We're going to start a round of shots, and we've got a couple of extra shots because nobody showed up for their appointment. If you'd like one, come on in." And I was like, there's a whole bunch of people in front of me. I mean, I don't, and I want my staff to be able to get a shot for that. She said, "Well, hey, I got to throw these away at the end of the day if you don't come in." So I said, "All right." And I told her to call a couple other people. Came in and got my shot. That afternoon, and as I left, she says, "This is their first time doing this, so if you got any ideas of how to run people through this, make it go a little bit smoother," because they ran through 100 shots that day in this small little surgical clinic. And so if you got any ideas on how to make this run smoother, let us know. That afternoon, I'm driving home, and I'm listening on NPR about how people of color, people in BIPOC communities, people at low income, are having difficulty accessing the shot. Right after my arm is a little sore, I realized, I'm this middle-aged professional straight white guy that gets a shot, and that privilege was afforded to me. That freedom was afforded to me where others didn't have access to the shot. So I called her up and said, "Hey, look, the next time you have extra shots, don't call people like me." And I gave her some numbers and some contacts in the community, and she realized that too. And as a result, a whole bunch of people that would not have been able to have easy access, the freedom of access to that shot, were able to get the shot. Now, that shot helped me out a little bit too. One of the freedoms that I gained from that shot was that I didn't have to work from home all the time. I've got a couple of, the Olympic Educational Service District is represented well tonight. All right? Except Angela's bailed on us, but that's okay. And so I got to go into work. And there's really a tremendous freedom to that because 2 years ago, my daughter moved back in with me. And along with my daughter came Paco, the fucking dog. She's not, and I'm really clear, and people who know, not my dog. But Paco believes that the mailman, who's a really cool guy, really nice guy, long hair, great beard, listens to the Grateful Dead, really cool guy, Paco believes that he is Satan. And so as soon as the mailman comes, he twigs out and starts barking and yelling. And oh, by the way, Amazon and UPS and FedEx and just anybody else are Satan's minions that walk by the house. I was giving a presentation. I had my 2 slides at a state presentation over Zoom with a couple of state legislators, the state superintendent of public instruction, and I was ready to give my 2 slides. We were talking about institutional education and what things need to be done, and I was going to nail this. And the camera came on to me, and the mic came off, and the mailman came. And Paco, the fucking dog, started barking. And everybody laughed, and everybody got a kick out of it because it was COVID, and it's all that stuff. So, but freedom is that I get to leave Paco alone with Marvin the cat. Those of you that know Marvin or know of Marvin, Marvin can disembowel Paco at any moment, and we've been talking about that, but he hasn't done that yet. Then the last freedom that I've gained as a result of having the shot. About 3 weeks ago, I got a text message on a Friday afternoon from Josh Farley. And if you've been listening to KUOW lately, Josh Farley has been a guest panelist on the Week in Review, which is KUOW's Friday afternoon kind of review. Bill Radke runs it. It's actually a pretty fun show. I listen to it a lot. Josh texts me and says, hey, I called you out on the Week in Review. So a couple of weeks prior, by the way, let me set it up. So at the end of the Week in Review, Bill Radke asks all the panelists, hey, now share something that made you smile this week. A couple of weeks prior, I was up with a friend up in Kingston. We were walking around the waterfront. We were walking our dog. We were having a nice time. We went and got, things were opening up. This was just a few weeks ago. Things were opening up. We got some ice cream and some, what's the little, what are the little crepes? Thank you. The crepe shop. Do you guys know the crepe shop in Kingston? Go get some crepes. So we had a crepe and some ice cream, and and then I'm walking down the corner, and there's Josh Farley. And I said, Josh! And he goes, Jeff! And we literally, the last time that I saw Josh physically was on the street on East 11th in downtown Manette by the Manette Saloon. And he and his wife Rosie and I had a drink, and we were going, gosh, this is going to be a rough year. And this was a year and a half ago. And I said, Josh, and he goes, Jeff. And then we go in for the elbow bump. And then we stopped. And he goes, I'm vaccinated. So am I. Bring it in. And we just gave ourselves the oxytocin rush of having that, 20 seconds. By the way, just so you know, physiologically, 20 seconds is how long it takes for a hug to begin to release the oxytocin in your body, and the oxytocin is that feel-good hormone. And so now I'm hugging everybody. And so, I mean, I walked in here, first thing I did was give Steve a hug. The freedom now to get a dose of oxytocin. You know, there's a lot of things that this year hopefully has reminded each and every one of us of what we take for granted, what we didn't realize we actually had, and what we actually need. And I hope that you find or have found and reflected on something that's going to come back to you that gives you a little bit of rush of oxytocin, maybe feel a little compassion for a fucking dog, or maybe eat some Brussels sprouts. Thank you.
Give it up for Jeff Allen. He did give me a hug. I'm a little wet, though. It didn't last 20 seconds. That's probably a little gross. That'll counteract the oxytocin. Speaking of Josh Farley, Bridging Bremerton is back. So look for that. Look for Bridging Bremerton wherever you find your Bridging Bremerton stores. It starts in 2 days, right? Yeah. So look forward to that. On the same day? Okay, so let us all know somehow. Manette Garden Tour, August 7th? Oh, it's August. Okay. Well, no, okay. Well, okay. So Bridging Bremerton all month in July. Manette Garden Tour, like the first Saturday in August, something like that. Okay. The 7th. Okay. August 7th. Okay. So that means we'll be back here August 5th, if the 7th is a Saturday. We don't have a theme yet, but stay tuned. Also, by the way, Nessa and Janae are the operators of the Out Loud Story Slam in Sequim and Port Angeles, Washington. And I think they just walked out to chat. Anyway, they left a note here. If they had to leave, they got a long drive home. Anyway, on Friday, August 20th, with the library system up there, North Olympic Library System, and it's the library in Port Angeles, 7 p.m. It's a night of stories. It's a night like this one on August 20th. The theme is Summer Nights. Again, that's the Out Loud Story Slam. Up in Sequim, we have 2 more storytellers. Our next one is Marilyn Warren, which means, Alicia, you are our final storyteller. Again, thanks so much to everyone for coming out tonight, and I'll say it again, and stick around and get stickers and sign the flag. But anyway, write whatever you want to share. At this point, I don't want things to be free-form. I want you to give me a topic to write about. Guess my life has been too controlled the last 17 months. I really had nothing today when I was coming up with something. Let's just let people write. Okay. Write whatever you want to share. So happy to be back. I've missed all of you tremendously. There's nothing like story night. I love it. Thanks. Marilyn, right? Please welcome Marilyn.
Okay. Oh, that's the first time I've ever done this, so. I'm always telling stories, whether people want to hear them or not. So I was living off the grid in the 80s in Northern California, and it was a dream come true. I was on top of a mountain, wildlife everywhere. I had chickens. I had a baby pig. I had 2 horses. I had a herd of goats. They were all breeding and babies, and it was fantastic. I had a cabin I rented out on the bottom of the mountain. And this is a story about some cats. A lady moved out and left a tomcat down there. His name was Roger, big black and white tomcat, and a little gray kitten. So I said, well, I better not bring them up on the mountain. I'll just go down there and feed them. Pretty soon, the little gray kitten grew up, and they came up the mountain like, we know where she is. And pretty soon I had a cat family of 19 cats, all gray and white, and black and white. They had hammocks in the oak trees. They ate in big platters of food. Some were tame, some were not. Every year they rotated. There were kittens born in cabinets under the house. New kittens came out. They were part of nature. The original cat, Roger, actually brought food home for the new kittens. I told the vet about this. He said, I never heard of that before. I said, well, that's what he did. He came in with a little mouse and dropped it right in the middle of the kittens that barely had their eyes open. So it was just fascinating to watch these animals in their natural states. Well, after 8 years, I lost the property. It was heartbreaking. I had to move out. I had all these animals. I ended up getting a motorhome, an old motorhome, and I left with mama dog Rosie and her 2 half-grown pups, Blondie and Brownie, and China Boy, who was the first son of Roger, a big black and white tomcat. I thought, I have no idea how this is going to work. They had never even been near traffic, roads, people, nothing. So I just put them all in there and off we went. Well, they were amazing. I can't even think how well they did. I had a cable down the outside of the motorhome, and I hooked them on their leashes there, and they were just, perfect animals. And China Boy rode on the dash, and the little Paco dog, he stood up by the driver's side, and we just drove around for 8 years, actually. Well, one time I stopped in Arcata, where my daughter was in college, and this is a funny story the story is really about China Boy. He was a male cat, and he had never been fixed. He was old, so I just thought, I'm not going to worry about that at this point. He's too old to do that. So anyway, so a few nights he managed to get out of the motorhome and scare me to death, but he'd go over and there's some garage parts, and he'd usually come back, and he'd be greasy and hungry and wah, wah, And so one time he escaped, and he was gone for 3 days. I was scared to death. I said, oh, man, I've lost him now. He came back one evening, and he was clean as a whistle. I said, where have you been? He came in. He had nothing to say. He was perfectly happy, no grease on him, nothing. I said, where have you been? I didn't have my glasses on. That's a clue. So I just said, okay, well, let's go to bed. In the morning, I picked him up, and I looked at his belly, and he was all shaved. I went, oh, my God, you've been neutered. How did that happen? So anyway, there was China Boy back, neutered. And then we traveled on, and this is kind of a short story, I guess. But all these animals were very attached to one another. They'd been together all these years. And, the puppies were born, and they grew up with China Boy was the oldest animal in the animal family. And we were camping in Sutherland, Oregon. China Boy got very sick, and it was a weekend. I didn't know what was wrong with him. And I thought, well, I'll just wait till tomorrow. And then I got in a panic, and it was Sunday. I found a vet. I raced over there. They closed at noon. It was too late. I brought him back home, and overnight he passed away. It was very sad, and it makes me cry right now. Anyway, we were out in this wooded area in Sutherland, Oregon, and I took all the animals with me, Rosie and her 2 children, Blondie and Brownie, and we went out under a tree, and I had a blanket for China Boy, and I dug a grave, and I laid him in there, and I said, for the animals to look at him. And there he is, he's gone. They all looked in there, and Blondie came over and she pushed the dirt with her nose into the grave and covered him up. And I don't know what else to say, but don't ever think your animals don't have emotions. And that they are definitely a family. That's the end of the story.
Great job.
We did travel on, we went on. Missing him.
Marilyn Warren, everyone, thank you. Again, first-time storyteller at Story Night. So, Alicia Morales is next. I'm going to read the rest of these before, and then afterwards, please stick around long enough to sign the flag and get a sticker. I'll say goodnight to you, but it'll be very quick. Okay, if you're in the, you guys, I know nobody responded to the Dutch Bros question, so you're not part of that cult, and you're probably better off. But on the first of the month, they always give out a new sticker. And my favorite color sticker? No, I don't get it. I'm sorry. My favorite color? Oh, it's Dodger blue. All right. Write whatever you want to share. I'm so happy to see you all. Oh, gosh. I have 2 pandemic grandbabies, LMAO. And I'm only 47, ha ha ha. I'm still waiting for my invite to Steve's running group, and I still think it should be called the Run-On Sentences. If by Steve you're referring to me, you'll have no problem catching up. All right. Nice to be back. It is a free country. That's a loaded statement. It's only free if you don't infringe on someone else's freedom. Right on. I was the maid of honor in my BFF's wedding. I forgot the wedding ring. I don't think she's forgiven me. Somebody just had to get this off their chest if they've been waiting. What do you want to share? I totally screwed this up. I forgot the wedding ring. That's awesome. I'm glad you chose us. You have friends here. It's our first story night as a married couple. Now, I know you guys were married. There we go. Congratulations. When did you get married?
September 6th, 2020.
That's
11 people.
there were yeah. That's awesome. Thanks for letting us know about it. Another round of applause. You know what? We've gone late enough. I'm not going to tell any more stuff. Please welcome Alicia Morales.
So I was having a conversation with my grant manager the other day. It actually happened to be earlier today. So this story is going to be kind of told in reverse. So his name is Dan. Dan is wonderful. I gave my notice on Monday. And so I have been working at Fred Hutch doing cancer research for the past 6 years. And I'm going to say 90% of the time, I really, really enjoyed it. And I was very sad to have to leave. And that brings me to my conversation with Dan. And Dan, I am so unhappy. And there just comes a point where you don't feel like you can make any changes. And he's like, well, yeah, well, then what do you do? Well, then you leave. Let me take you back. January 2020. a new person came to the lab, and it's always a joyous time when a new person comes into your life. It's full of promise, right? Full of a new friendship, a new hope, all those good things. And then the first lab meeting that we had all as a team, he threw me under the bus in front of everybody. And so I had an experiment that just didn't turn out right. I was working with my mentor trying to get it figured out, because that's what science is. 90% of the time, it just doesn't work. So you got to figure out how to make it work. Totally natural. But we get into this meeting with my boss and all of our collaborators, and this person talks, 40 minutes about how wonderful he is and all of his plans for when he comes into the lab. And then he says, and Alicia's experiment hasn't worked. Alicia, why don't you talk about it? Okay, it's not working. And so I got grilled by my boss. My boss was very unhappy. I heard later on that he felt personally embarrassed by my performance in this meeting. And it's like, how do you say, I was thrown under the bus by the new guy, So a few months later, that guy becomes my new supervisor. And so to toe the party line, I'm like, okay, we're just going to swallow it, and we're going to be happy, and we're going to do good science. And then I hated my job every day for over a year. And so I'm telling Dan, present day, I'm telling Dan all of these stories, and some of my favorites, not only about, throwing me under the bus the first time, was when he asked me to break into another lab. So we had an early experiment. He had never, made plans with this other lab who had a piece of equipment we needed to use. I show up from Bremerton, an hour and a half commute to be there. And he's like, yeah, so I didn't actually, talk to this other lab to figure it out. Will you see if anyone's there? So I go down there. There's nobody there. I tell him this, and he says, ask security to let you in. And I said, I'm not comfortable with that. And then he never brought it up again. So that's one of my favorites. Another one of my favorites is... So another time, another experiment hadn't worked out because 90% of the time science doesn't work. And so he was berating me. What did you do? Why didn't this work? Is it this? Is it that? And I'm trying to answer his question, and he keeps interrupting me. And so I don't stop. I keep talking. So then he talks over me. So then I stop and I just, Alicia, keep your kung fu in check. You just need to not snap on this guy. You need this job. You have student loans. Just rein it in. Just rein it in. So when he's done talking, I said, I'm going to answer your question in a moment, but I have another question for you. Are you cognizant of how often you interrupt me? And again, so we're in masks, so all I see is, it's like a slap in the face. I'm sorry? I was like, yeah, because, you asked me a question, then I tried to answer your question, then you talked over me, but when I didn't stop, you kept trying to interrupt me. Are you aware of how often that happens and what you are projecting to other people when you do that? Well, I've been doing science for 20 years. Okay, so is that a yes? Is that a no? I'm a bit unclear on your answer. And he said, well, no one's ever said anything before. It's like, okay, that's fine. I'm not mad at you. But I really think that you need to understand how you need to be cognizant that this is a dynamic that you are putting forth. And so I'm telling Dan all of these stories, and Dan's like, I am so sorry. I had no idea that you were going through all of this for so long. And it's like, well, yeah, you know. When people think about scientists, they don't think about people like me, right? Like the cheerleader, the person who's like silly and like just wants to have fun but do good science. You know, they think of people like my supervisor, you know, older, just slovenly, no people skills. Like that's it. Like when people think about scientists in their mind, they think of Albert Einstein, somebody who just like doesn't tie their own shoes, right? And so it's like I still wanted to be part of it until I was so unhappy that I brought it home. Not only was I unhappy at work, I became unhappy on the ferry rides. And then after the ferry rides, I was okay. But then it extended into the bus ride home, and then the car ride home, and then entering the door. And soon it just came to a point where I couldn't put it down. So what do you do when your work environment becomes so toxic? You leave, and that's where you find your freedom. Thank you.
Alicia, the guy who threw you under the bus, did you name him? No. Okay, just so we're clear, worse than Mike. Worse than Mike. Yes. Do you remember her Mike stories? Yeah. Worse than Mike. Round of applause for Alicia Morales. And that was our final storyteller tonight, but I have an assignment for all of you, and that is to hang around. I'm going to take this flag and drape it over that table, and I'd like everybody to sign it. I've got fabric pens. You're probably going to need, just be careful. When I say be careful, it may not show up. I don't know how these colors work. I didn't sign it first myself. So come on over and sign the flag. We'll keep bringing that back, and we'll just keep adding more names. I love you guys. Thanks for being here. August 5th, we'll be back. I look forward to hearing your story. Good night.